when my mother looked straight at me and said, "You're not half the woman your sister is." My heart didn't just clench. It shattered. But this time, instead of swallowing the pain and retreating into silence, I pushed my chair back. The scrape of wood on the floor cut through the room. I met her cold gaze and replied calmly, "Then maybe she should start paying the rent for you." My father's face went white. He stammered, "Rent? What rent?" And in that single moment, the secret I had been carrying for 4 long years finally spilled out in front of everyone. If you were in my shoes, could you have stayed silent for so long? Let me know in the comments where you're listening from. I'd love to see how far this story travels. My name is Sam, and I'm a forensic accountant. My life is built on numbers, on finding the truth hidden in spreadsheets and bank statements. From the outside, it looks perfect. A great job, a neat apartment, a quiet, orderly life. But every Sunday, that order crumbled at my parents' dinner table. For them, this dinner was a sacred ritual, and my attendance was non-negotiable. My sister, Jessica, was 3 years older and the designated star of our family. She was the golden child, born to succeed. And every achievement was celebrated with thunderous applause. I, the quieter one who found comfort in logic and numbers, was always the supporting act. I never complained, because I knew my own worth didn't need a spotlight. But that doesn't mean the constant comparisons didn't leave scars. The dinner conversation, as always, orbited around Jessica, her latest promotion, her new boyfriend, her plans for a European vacation. She deserves it. My father boomed with pride. She's always making us proud. I just pushed my food around my plate, each bite tasting like resentment. They never mentioned that I paid my own way through college, that I built my career from nothing. In their eyes, my contributions were silent, expected duties. Nothing compared to Jessica's flashy wins. Then came the final straw. As my mother set her wine glass down, she looked at me with pure disappointment. "You're not even half the woman your sister is." And that's when I broke. As I spoke about rent, my mind flashed back to a desperate phone call 4 years ago. It was late, and my mother's voice was a choked whisper. "Sam, we're going to lose the house. Your father's business. The bank is calling." I remember the cold dread that washed over me. The house I grew up in, about to be repossessed. Her voice broke completely. "Can you help us? Just this one time, we'll pay you back." I swear, I didn't hesitate. I said yes. That one promise, just this one time, became a financial leash that I couldn't shake for 4 years. The next month, a text arrived. "Sweetheart, we're still short. Just 1 more month." "I promise." I agreed again. And again. Soon, those one-time payments became a routine. I set up an automatic transfer. $2,250. Every single month. For 48 months straight. $108,000. My dream of buying my own condo, of building my own future, faded with every transaction. I told myself it was my duty. Family comes first. But the real betrayal wasn't the money. It was the lies. While my parents claimed they were barely scraping by, my sister's social media told a very different story. One week, it was a picture of Jessica, smiling from the driver's seat of a brand new luxury car. My father commented, "You earned it, princess." The next month, she was posing in a designer dress that cost more than my rent, with my mother gushing. My beautiful, successful daughter. They weren't struggling. They were using my sacrifice to fund her perfect life. Every dollar I gave up for their security was being funneled into her vanity. And now, sitting at that dinner table, as the truth hung in the air, they did exactly what I knew they would. They denied everything. My mother's voice trembled with manufactured outrage. "We never asked you for a single penny, if you chose to give us money. That was your decision. Don't you dare throw it in our faces now." My father crossed his arms, trying to look intimidating. "Sam, bringing up finances at the dinner table is incredibly inappropriate. We appreciate your help in the past, but this is not the time or the place." Hearing their words, a bitter laugh escaped my lips. Inappropriate. For 4 years, I silently kept a roof over your heads. Tonight, I sit here and listen to my own mother tell me I'm worthless compared to my sister. Do you honestly not see the injustice in that? The room felt suffocating. The air was thick with their denial. And through it all, Jessica, the saint, the golden child, sat perfectly still. She didn't say a word. She just stared down at her plate, her hands clasped in her lap, as if this had nothing to do with her. Her silence was louder than their shouting. It was a confirmation. She knew. She had always known. She was a willing participant in the lie. And in that moment, I saw the calculated betrayal for exactly what it was. That night, back in the quiet sanctuary of my apartment, I felt like a ghost. The drive home was a blur, their words echoing in my head. You're being dramatic. Don't make this a bigger deal than it is. I dropped my keys on the counter and walked straight to my laptop. My hands were shaking, but my movements were precise. I logged into my bank account, navigated to the scheduled payments, and found the recurring transfer to my parents. For 48 months, it had been a constant acquiescence on my life. I stared at the cancel button. It felt like severing a limb. For so long, my identity had been tied to being the dutiful daughter, the silent savior. I took a deep breath and clicked. Are you sure? The screen asked. Yes. I whispered to the empty room. A wave of grief washed over me, immediately followed by an intoxicating surge of relief. The chain was broken. I felt hollow, but also free, lost in a spiral of confusion and pain. I started searching online, typing phrases like, why do parents favor one child and unequal family dynamics? And then I found it. An article describing the golden child and scapegoat dynamic. As I read, it was like someone had turned on a light in the dark, twisted hallways of my entire life. The golden child. Jessica could do no wrong. She was the family's trophy, embodying all their hopes and dreams. Her successes were the family's successes. The scapegoat, me, existed to carry the family's burdens and absorb their frustrations. My achievements were downplayed, my sacrifices taken for granted. It wasn't about love or worth, it was about roles. This psychological framework was a revelation. It shifted everything. My pain wasn't just a personal failing, it was a predictable outcome of a toxic system. My mind, trained to find patterns in numbers, suddenly saw the pattern in my life. I wasn't just an emotional victim anymore. I was an analyst who had just been handed the key to the entire case. Just then, my phone rang. It was my Uncle David, my mother's brother, the only person in the family who ever seemed to truly see me. I heard what happened at dinner. Sammy, are you okay? His voice was kind, and I felt a crack in my resolve. I told him everything. He listened patiently, sighing with frustration. I knew it. He said, I never liked how they treated you. Then, he unknowingly handed me the first piece of hard evidence. Just try to ignore them for a bit. It's going to get worse before it gets better. Jessica is throwing a huge party next weekend. A party. For what? Uncle David's voice dropped. To celebrate paying off her car. The blood drained from my face. Her car. The luxury sedan she bought 3 years ago. The one my money, my $108,000, had made possible. It wasn't just a betrayal. They were celebrating it. The rage that followed Uncle David's call was cold and clear. It was a catalyst. I funneled that precise, analytical anger into the one place I had total control: my work. The fog of family obligation lifted, and my focus became razor sharp. I started taking on the most complex forensic cases at my firm, diving into tangled webs of financial deceit with a personal vengeance. I worked late, not out of duty, but out of a burning desire to build something that was entirely mine. My boss noticed. My reputation grew. 6 months later, I was promoted to head of the department. Then, the email arrived. It was from a top tech firm in Denver, a place known for poaching the best talent in the country. They were creating a new financial crimes division and wanted me to lead it. The offer was staggering. A massive salary increase, signing bonus, equity. It was a different league. It was a different life. Leaving my city was daunting. But the thought of staying, of being geographically close to the source of my pain, was suffocating. I realized then that my entire life had been governed by a scarcity mindset. I had unconsciously believed that love, approval, and security were limited resources that I had to desperately earn from my family. I had to sacrifice pieces of myself, my dreams, my money, just to get a few scraps of their validation. But this opportunity I had earned entirely on my own. It flipped a switch in my mind. I was moving into an abundance mindset. I didn't need their approval to have worth. I could generate my own success. I could create my own security. I took the job. Denver was a rebirth. The crisp mountain air felt like it was cleaning out my lungs. My new colleagues were brilliant and driven. They valued my mind, my skills, not my role in a dysfunctional family drama. I was thriving. I bought a small, beautiful condo downtown with a view of the mountains. I made new friends, people who were supportive and emotionally healthy. One evening, we were all out for dinner, and my friend Sarah was talking about a funny argument she'd had with her mother. Everyone laughed and shared their own stories of normal, loving, complicated families. I just smiled and stayed quiet. They asked me about my family, and I gave them the polished, vague answer. They're in Austin. We're not super close. In that moment, I felt the weight of the silent burden, even here, 1,000 miles away. In my new, successful life, the secret was still with me. It was a toxic anchor. I was dragging along the floor of my new kingdom. I had escaped, but I hadn't been liberated. The story they controlled back home, the lie they were living, was an unresolved variable in the equation of my life. And as a forensic accountant, I knew you could never close a case until every last variable was accounted for. I needed a final reckoning. Not for them, but for me. Life in Denver was better than I could have imagined. I was respected at work. I had a real social life. And for the first time, I felt like I was living for myself. I had muted my family on social media. But old habits die hard. One evening, scrolling through a cousin's feed, I saw a picture that made my blood run cold. It was a post from my mother. She was standing on the front lawn of the family home, arm in arm with my father and Jessica. Behind them, a massive banner was strung across the porch. The words, in huge, celebratory letters, read, "Congratulations, Jessica, for saving our family home." I had to read it 3 times. Saving the family home. They had done it. They had completely erased me from history. My 4 years of sacrifice, the $108,000, the sleepless nights, the canceled dreams, all of it had been wiped clean from the record and attributed to her. It was the ultimate betrayal. Not just an omission, but a deliberate, public rewriting of the truth that cast her as the hero and me as a non-entity. A white-hot rage, purer and more intense than anything I had ever felt, surged through me. This wasn't just an insult. This was fraud. I immediately picked up the phone and called Uncle David. I didn't even say hello. "Did you see it?" I asked, my voice shaking. "I saw it." "Sammy," he said, his own voice tight with anger. "It's disgusting. I was going to call you." I sank onto my sofa. The picture burned into my mind. I don't understand how they could do this. How Jessica could stand there and smile, knowing the truth. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then, Uncle David said, "Sam, there's something more you need to know. It's worse than you think." He told me that a few weeks ago. He had stopped by their house, unannounced, to drop something off. He walked in through the back and overheard Jessica talking to my parents in the kitchen. She wasn't just a silent beneficiary of my money. She was the architect of my entrapment. He heard her, in her calm, sweet voice, say, "You should keep taking the money from Sam. It's good for her. It keeps her grounded and focused on family. We can't have her getting too ambitious and outshining me." Can we? The words hit me like a physical blow. It wasn't just selfishness. It was malicious, calculated sabotage. She had actively encouraged them to bleed me dry. Not just for her own benefit, but to intentionally hold me back, to keep me small, to ensure I could never eclipse her. She saw my success as a threat to her reign, as the golden child, the final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. This wasn't just a family drama anymore. This was a conspiracy. And it was the final provocation I needed. Armed with the devastating truth, I felt a strange sense of calm. The forensic accountant in me took over. Emotion was a liability. Data was power. I booked a flight to Austin for the weekend of the family appreciation party they were throwing for Jessica. I spent the next 2 nights compiling my evidence into a presentation. It was the most important case of my life. I created slides detailing every single one of the 48 payments I had made. I inserted screenshots of my mother's pleading texts, complete with timestamps. I created a bar graph showing my dwindling savings next to a line graph of Jessica's lavish spending the down payment on her car, her trip to Italy, hair designer shopping sprees. The data was undeniable. I arrived at the restaurant as my father was beginning his toast. The room was full of relatives, all beaming at Jessica, the family savior. I walked silently to the back of the room. Near the projector, my father's voice filled the space. And so we raise our glasses to Jessica, whose incredible sacrifice and support saved our home. As the applause began, I calmly walked to the front of the room, took the HDMI cable from my father's laptop, and plugged it into my own, his face contorted with confusion and anger. "Sam, what are you doing?" The screen behind him flickered, and my first slide appeared. Project Nightingale, a forensic analysis of the family mortgage. Years 1 through 4. A stunned silence fell over the room. I didn't raise my voice. I spoke with the calm authority of an expert witness presenting her findings. For 10 minutes, I walked them through the data, the payments, the texts, the lies, and as court was adjourned, as my father stood to leave, 2 federal agents stepped forward. They arrested him right there in the courtroom for conspiracy and wire fraud. My mother shrieked as they put him in handcuffs. The family that had prioritized image and finance over everything else was publicly and completely destroyed by the truth they had tried so desperately to bury. The resolution came in the months that followed. Slowly. Then, with more force, a few cousins joined in. Soon, the entire room was filled with a scattered, stunned applause. It wasn't for me. It was for the truth. 2 days later, my parents showed up at my hotel. They looked broken. "We're so sorry." "Sam," my mother whispered, "we were wrong. We'll add your name to the house deed. We'll tell everyone the truth." I just looked at them. "I don't need my name on your house," I said, my voice steady. "I have my own." Their apologies were hollow, designed to ease their own guilt, not my pain. I realized I didn't need anything from them anymore. Not their approval. Not their money. Not even their remorse. I flew back to Denver that afternoon, and as the plane took off, I felt a profound sense of peace. The silent burden was gone, replaced by the simple, clean weight of the truth. My story was finally my own. And I want to leave you with this. Your value is not determined by the role your family assigns you. It is forged in the fire of your own resilience, built by your own hands. You are the sole author of your own worth. Never let anyone else hold the pen.